So what are you gonna do when somebody doesn't pay you? Hey guys, in today's video, we're gonna be tackling a huge issue in trucking, not getting paid. Whether you're a company driver, a lease operator, or a small carrier, at some point or another, you'll probably deal with a company, a broker, or a customer that's refusing to pay you. So what do you do when somebody doesn't pay their bills? This can happen in many ways. A driver not receiving their paycheck, a lease operator getting shorted on a settlement, a broker not paying a small carrier for a completed load, wrongful deduction appearing on your pay settlements, a shipper receiving delaying payments, or disappearing and ghosting you altogether. So let's break down how this can happen and what you can do about it. So here are some common ways that truckers and carriers get stiffed. For company drivers, missing miles on paychecks. You can run 3,000 miles, but your paycheck says 2,750 on miles. You bring it up to your boss's attention, they tell you, oh, you know what, we pay short miles, and you are driving practical miles. Short miles is just one way, but how about late and missing paychecks? You'd be surprised how often this happens and how many times I get emails from people that are not receiving their paychecks on time. But suddenly that company says, we're waiting for funds. Well, what are you supposed to do as a driver if the company continues to tell you that they're waiting for funds? My rule is that the second this happens, you need to start looking, because that debt is only gonna grow more and more and more. Unpaid layovers and detention time. So you should sit at the shipper for 10 hours, but they're not paying your detention. So if you sat for about 10 hours, the first 2 hours are free, which is included in your rate per mile, but after that, you, the driver, should start getting paid detention, whether or not the broker pays for it or not. If you as a driver are sitting, you need to get paid for it. But that happens a lot in our industry. How about wrongful deductions for something that didn't happen or something that was not your fault? Here's the situation. So you pick up a load from the yard. You take it to a delivery, you're a local driver, but when you open up that trailer, all of a sudden you see that 2 skids have tilted over. Now in your paycheck, you see that there's a deduction for damage. You ask your boss tells you, yep, it's that load that you delivered and those 2 skids moved over, but you picked up that load from the yard. It's not your fault. We don't know, or nobody knows who's actually to blame. Is it the highway driver? Is it the driver that picked up? Or is it the driver that delivered? But in most cases, the driver is just a company driver and he should not be paying for damages. For lease operators, I mean, this is very common. You agree to a percentage of the load, but somehow you're starting to feel that percentage is not actually being paid to you, or somebody is skimming from the top. How about sign-on bonus scams? You completed your contract, now they say you didn't qualify for their sign-on bonus, or you completed it and then they said that $5,000 sign-on bonus, we're gonna be dividing it over the next 12 months. Well, that's just a way to trap you in. So there's a lot of fraud happening in our industry and there's a lot of deductions happening in our industry. So what are we gonna do about it? So now that's just a driver's perspective. Let's get into small carriers or mid-sized carriers. Here's some things that happens to them, but I promise you at the end, I have a solution for all this, both for the drivers, the lease operators, the owner operators, and for you small fleet owners out there. Now, so for small fleet owners, brokers not paying their invoices. You run a load, you sent an invoice, and now the broker has ghosted you. Or you run a load, and all of a sudden you are outstanding 75 days, 85 days, and the broker just is not paying their invoice or continues to give you the runaround. That's just one example. What about waiting time? What about layovers? I mean, this is so common and it happens all the time in our industry. Or if somehow somebody deducted $500 from you for being late on a delivery. Who said that $500 is the right amount? What if they deducted $1,000? This happens all the time with freight brokers. Detention and lumper fees not getting paid. I mean, how many shorts have I done on ruthless freight brokers out there that just refuse to pay layovers, waiting time? They just deduct whatever they want if you're late. And somehow when you read their 75-page broker carrier agreement, somehow in some sort of paragraph 55B, it says that they have the right to do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want. So this isn't just bad business, it's theft. So what can you do about it? What steps can you take in order for you to get paid? Well, let's start off. So number one, we start with a professional follow-up with an email. So you can either call or email. I prefer an email because there's a track record to it. Contact the broker, the carrier, or the customer professional, or contact your employer and let them know that, hey, you know what, you haven't paid me for the miles that I drove, or I waited X amount of hours at the shipper or the receiver, I didn't get my waiting time, just follow up with an email. You could place a phone call, but I prefer that people do it in an email. And you let them know. If you're the driver, you're telling them on which day you picked up and that you waited there for X amount of hours and that you need to get paid for your waiting time. So that's the first thing that you need to do. The second thing that I highly recommend is that you document everything. Keep a paper trail with emails, phone calls, logs, and text messages. If somebody doesn't get back to you, send them a second request, which means it's pretty much the same email with a second request. Step number 2 is you need to send a demand letter. If you're being ignored, send a formal demand letter via email and or certified mail. So I like this because you actually have, you're kind of building a case towards it. And if you're a driver, you might not want to take this step, but you definitely want to send a second request email. You want somebody to get back to you. Now, if this happens 3 or 4 times on 3 or 4 paychecks, you have a decision to make as a driver. Are you staying in this company that doesn't pay you practical miles? Or are you saying, you know what, I need to find another job that pays me for my miles? So I've created a guide for you guys if anybody needs it, okay? So it's 3 different email templates letting somebody who unlawfully deducted something from you, or if you didn't get paid for the mileage or the waiting time, this guide is definitely going to help you out. I'll link it down below and you can send it to whoever owes you money. Now, number 3, the next thing that I would do if your second email does not get read, or you did not receive a response to your second email, or if somebody told you this is our company and this is what we do, definitely leave a Google review to warn others. So I'm gonna show you a sample of what I do when somebody doesn't pay me an invoice, okay? This is a Google review that I actually put when somebody doesn't pay me. So as a carrier, if a freight broker doesn't pay me, I'm not talking about the waiting time, and I'm just talking about straightforward, the invoice is not getting paid or they're giving me the runaround. So I just put a Google review on them. I would basically draft out everything that happened, and here's what I leave. So drivers and carriers beware. In a summary, this has been the most frustrating experience I've had with this broker. I take the 10-15 minutes to actually write the Google review, a proper Google review. And if you can have screenshots, add the screenshots. It will give more credibility to your review. Now, I can assure you that 5 out of 6 brokers, or I would say 80% that I leave the Google review to this freight broker, right away I receive a phone call from whomever. And usually they apologize, usually say, can you please remove the Google review? And I tell them, yes, I'm going to remove the Google review as long as I get my payment first. So I tell them, hey, listen, it sucks that it happened. They'll give me all the reasons of why it happened. Our accountant was on vacation. We're sorry, we didn't see the emails. We didn't pick up our phones. Whatever excuse they have, I really don't care. I want my money. They send the money, I remove the Google review. Now, if you are a driver, if you take the time to draft, hey guys, I drove X amount of miles, I only get paid in this company. They try to cheat you on practical miles, or they're skimming off the top, and this is how they do it. You actually want to go into detail about how the company does what they do in order to warn other drivers. Now, after you leave a Google review, so let's say in my situation, this Google review did not help. What do I do next? Step number 4, you have the right to file against a freight broker's surety bond. So the brokers must have $75,000 bond on file, and you can claim against that bond. You can find their bond info on the FMCSA's website, and then you contact the surety bond company and submit a claim on them. It's a lot easier than people think it is. Now, step number 5, and this is what I leave to the end, is I start going after the shippers and the receivers. So what I would do is I have a template here. It's a step-by-step guide on how to go after the shipper and the receiver. It's got templates, it's got case law, it's got literally everything that you need. This is my loaded gun. And what I do, if a freight broker doesn't pay me, I go after the shipper and I go after the receiver based on the Bills of Lading Act. And I also cite here multiple case laws that make the shipper and the receiver both liable in different situations. They're liable for the payment if I don't get paid. And then I can assure you, if step number 1, 2, 3, 4 don't work with the surety bond, I also file on the surety bond, and then I also simultaneously go after the shipper and the receiver. What does this do? This actually destroys the relationship between the freight broker and the shipper. Okay, so once the shipper gets this, obviously I warn the freight broker that if I don't get paid, I'm going to be doing this. But then comes, the action. If the freight broker ghosted me, great. I'm going after the shipper and I'm going after the receiver. And can I assure you that 99% of all of my files gets settled with the shipper and the receiver. Now, if you need to learn how to do this, obviously I have a template, a guide with multiple emails to send out to the shipper, to the receiver. And again, like I said, it's citing some good case law. You know, in most of the cases, you should actually read the reviews of what people say when they bought this toolkit. It's very, very powerful, and I recommend for everybody to use it. Now, if everything that I just sent you from step 1 to step 5 does not work, then you can also go and hire and retain counsel. So I would start off with a paralegal. So if you're a truck driver or an owner operator and somebody did not pay you for your services, somebody didn't pay you for your mileage, you know, you've accumulated, and if it's actually worth it, I mean, a paralegal will probably cost you a lot less than a lawyer. It would probably be settled in a small claims court, and it would cost a lot less than obviously retaining counsel. But I see a lot of these things get settled with hiring a paralegal. So trucking is tough enough without having to fight for the money we're owed. I really hope that none of you have to go through this, but getting paid shouldn't be this difficult. But unfortunately, this is part of the game. Have you ever been stiffed on a payment? Share your experience in the comments. The more we expose bad brokers, shady companies, and scammers, the better we can protect ourselves. If you found this helpful, like and subscribe to our channel for more insights into the trucking industry. I'm Ronan, and I'll catch you in my next video.